You've tried it all, haven't you? The cookie cutters that make fun shapes, the endless varieties of dip, maybe even the infamous one-bite rule. But your child's picky eating feels like a battle you're always losing. For so many parents, dinner time is exhausting. You're worn out from the negotiating, the pleading, and just the sheer worry of it all. You might spend hours every year just trying to get them to eat. And while everyone, your mother-in-law, your friends, even some pediatricians, tells intansubawanki, oh, it's just a phase, they'll grow out of it. You have this nagging feeling in your gut that this might be something more. Well, I'm here to tell you to trust that gut feeling. A landmark 2015 study from Duke University confirmed that for some children, this isn't just a phase. What experts call selective eating can be a major red flag for hidden psychological issues that go far beyond the dinner table. The lead author of that study, Dr. Nancy Zucker, said, "The children we're talking about are not just misbehaving kids who refuse to eat their broccoli. So today, we're going to cut through the noise. We're breaking down the 5 signs that selective eating may be linked to broader developmental issues. This isn't about a simple dislike of broccoli. We're talking about eating patterns so restrictive they can mess with a child's ability to just be a kid." I'm going to explain exactly what the science says about when it's time to get help and what these signs could mean for your child's future. Let's start with the first and most disruptive sign. Sign number 1, impairment in family or social functioning. The first warning sign is one you don't need a study to see, because you're living it. It's when your child's picky eating is no longer just about your child. It's causing serious disruption and stress for the entire family. The Duke University study of over 900 preschool-age children identified this as a key sign of clinically significant picky eating. They found that maladaptive food restriction is defined by the impairment it causes in your child's and your family's ability to function. Mealtimes are supposed to be about connection, but when they become a source of daily dread, that's a clear signal the problem has crossed a line. The research confirms that this level of selective eating is directly linked to high levels of family conflict. This is way more than, "I don't want that." This is meltdowns, gagging at the sight of new food, and parents who are left feeling helpless and frustrated. This impairment also extends outside the home. A child with severe picky eating might become terrified of going to a friend's house for dinner, or even out to a restaurant. The Duke study classified about 3% of children as severely selective, meaning their food restrictions limited their ability to eat with others. Their world gets smaller and smaller because of food. Researchers note that if a child's food limitations stop them from being able to participate in social activities like birthday parties or family outings, it's a serious concern. The simple joy of sharing a meal with others is lost, replaced by planning and worry. This is a crucial sign because it validates what you're feeling. Your stress is real, and it's a clinically significant part of the problem. If you are dreading mealtimes and your family's life is shrinking, the picky eating is, by definition, severe. Sign number 2, concurrent anxiety or mood symptoms. The second major red flag is that this selective eating rarely exists in a bubble. It often shows up alongside other psychiatric symptoms. The Duke research was pivotal in finding that children with moderate to severe picky eating have significantly increased odds of also having anxiety and depression. Let's break down what this actually looks like, because those terms can sound clinical, and scary. First, there's separation anxiety. This is more than a toddler crying at daycare drop-off. This is an intense, persistent fear of being away from you, so much so that it gets in the way of them doing age-appropriate things. Food becomes one of the few things they feel they can control. The study specifically found that moderate selective eating was associated with elevated symptoms of separation anxiety. Then you've got social anxiety. The Duke researchers found that children with severe selective eating were more than twice as likely to have a diagnosis of social anxiety. For a kid, this can look like crippling shyness or a fear of being the center of attention. When you connect that to food, a child might avoid social situations like birthday parties or school lunch entirely. And there's also generalized anxiety. The study found that picky eaters were nearly twice as likely to show increased symptoms of generalized anxiety over time. In a young child, this often appears as constant what-if questions that feel totally out of proportion, or physical complaints like stomach aches that don't have a clear medical cause. Trying something new isn't just about taste. It can feel genuinely threatening to an anxious child. But the link doesn't stop with anxiety. The same research found a strong connection to depressive symptoms. In young kids, depression isn't always sadness. It can look like constant irritability, losing interest in things they used to love, or low energy. In fact, children with the most severe picky eating were more than twice as likely to have a diagnosis of depression. So when you see intense picky eating next to these emotional red flags, it's a sign they're struggling with something much bigger than a dislike for peas. If this is hitting home for you and you're finding this information helpful, do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button. My whole goal is to give parents like you research-backed, practical info to get through these tough challenges. Your subscription helps this video reach more families who really need to hear this. Sign number 3, sensory sensitivity beyond food. The third huge warning sign is when your child's pickiness isn't just about taste, but is part of a much bigger pattern of sensory hypersensitivity. The Duke study pointed to this as a key indicator of clinically significant selective eating, noting that this sensitivity usually shows up in domains outside of food. So, what does this look like? A child with these sensory issues might be the one who can't stand the tags on their clothes, complains that their socks have bumps, or flat-out refuses to wear jeans. They might cover their ears at the sound of a vacuum cleaner or a public toilet, or hate getting their hands messy with paint or sand. These aren't just little quirks. They're signs that their nervous system is being flooded with sensory information it can't filter properly. Now, imagine that same child at the dinner table. Eating is one of the most multisensory things we do. Think about something as simple as spaghetti. For a child with sensory hypersensitivity, it's a full-on sensory assault. You've got the slimy texture of the noodles, the lumpy meat, the wet sauce, all mixed together. The sensation can be so repulsive that their gag reflex kicks in automatically. This isn't a behavior to get attention. It's a physical reaction to being overwhelmed. This helps explain why some kids have such rigid food preferences. They might refuse a food they loved yesterday because today it was cooked a minute too long and the texture changed. If you notice your child's food issues are part of a bigger pattern of sensitivity to clothes, sounds, or other environmental stimuli that don't seem to bother other kids, it's a powerful sign you're dealing with more than just picky eating. You're dealing with a child whose brain is wired to experience the world with the volume turned all the way up. Sign number 4, Symptoms of ADHD. The fourth warning sign is a notable link between selective eating and attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD. The 2015 Duke study specifically highlighted a connection between moderate selective eating and elevated symptoms of ADHD. So, if your child's restrictive eating is happening alongside other behaviors, it's time to pay closer attention. The connection here might be related to underlying challenges with self-regulation. Parents should be concerned if their child's picky eating is accompanied by an inability to stay focused, difficulty sitting still, or a level of impulsivity that goes well beyond typical preschool behavior. The selective eating can be an outward sign of this internal struggle. For a child who has a hard time regulating their body and their attention, the dinner table can become just another overwhelming environment. The act of trying new, unfamiliar foods requires a level of regulation and focus they may not have. The big takeaway here isn't that picky eating causes ADHD. It's that they are often two symptoms of the same underlying challenge with regulation. So if you're seeing signs of inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity alongside the picky eating, it's not just two separate problems. They're likely connected and warrant a conversation with your pediatrician. Sign number 5, strong food aversions. The fifth and final sign is when your child doesn't just have preferences, but experiences intense and powerful food aversions. This is characterized by a visceral or highly emotional rejection of specific foods, rather than just a simple preference for one snack over another. The Duke study noted the experience of food aversion as a core feature of the problem. This goes far beyond a child saying, "I don't like mushrooms." This is a child who gags at the smell of the mushrooms cooking. This is a child who has a meltdown if a rejected food accidentally touches a safe food on their plate. The reaction is automatic and powerful. These aversions are often driven by the sensory experience we talked about earlier, an unbearable texture, a sickening smell, or by a deep-seated fear of a negative outcome, like choking or throwing up, often based on a single bad experience in the past. This is a core feature of what is now recognized as a formal eating disorder. Avoidance/restrictive food intake disorder, or ARFID. Unlike anorexia, ARFID has nothing to do with body image. It is driven entirely by this lack of interest in food, sensory-based avoidance, or fear of bad consequences. The Duke study concluded that picky eating, which leads to impairment, should be diagnosed as ARFID. These strong emotional aversions are the engine behind the restriction. When a child's rejection of food is this powerful, it's not a choice or a matter of willpower. It is a genuine, often fearful, response. Recognizing these preferences as true aversions is critical because it reframes the problem from one of defiance to one of distress. So, let's quickly recap the 5 signs that your child's picky eating is a real reason to worry. 1. It's causing major impairment in your family's life and your child's social functioning. 2. It's happening alongside other symptoms of anxiety or depression. 3. It's part of a bigger pattern of sensory sensitivity to things beyond just food. 4. It's accompanied by symptoms of ADHD, like difficulty with self-regulation. And 5. The behavior involves strong emotional food aversions, not just simple preferences. By recognizing these signs, you are not overreacting. You are being an observant, tuned-in parent. I really want to build a community here where we can support each other, so please leave a comment below. Share your story. What signs have you noticed? What's been the hardest part for your family? Just reading through the experiences of other parents can be so incredibly validating. And if you want to learn the practical, next steps you can take, be sure to watch my next video. We'll talk about how to find the right help and the best, no-pressure strategies to start rebuilding a healthy and happy relationship with food. Thanks for watching.